Hey everyone, it's Aaron. If you control the food and the water supply, you control the people. The Biden administration and the Waltons, who are the heirs to the Walmart fortune, are teaming up to gain complete control over the food and water supply. Now, how does one do this? This is something that seems very difficult, right? Do you buy all the farmland in the world or in America? Can you buy all the rivers and streams and lakes? Well, not all of that is actually for sale, and it would take too long even if you could and be too expensive. No, it's more about the same ingenious way that Walmart grew from a small retailer in the Midwest, where they would come into a small town and have the lowest prices and nobody could beat them, and it would result in the small mom and pop stores having to go out of business. And then Walmart would subsume that market share, and that's how they continued to grow to the next town and the next, thus becoming the largest retailer in the world. Now, they offered those low prices consistently because they had a very tight grip on their supply chain. And one of the key aspects of having a supply chain that you control is to not have any middlemen. So you are always paying the lowest price. So they were able to go straight to the vendors that actually made the products, and they cut out all the middlemen. And how does that relate to controlling food and water here in America? Well, you want to cut out the middlemen. So you're not going to try and buy all the farms. You're not going to actually try and buy the rivers, lakes, and streams. If you took something that was traditionally thought of as free and made it a financial product, and those who have money are able to control financial instruments more than those who don't have money, that's how you win. In this video, I'm going to show you how the current climate crisis is resulting in the lowest water levels that the Colorado River has ever seen. And that is currently being used as a narrative, I guess you could say, by the Walton family to fund nonprofits that are advocating for water markets to be put in place. Now, currently there's no water markets in America except for one small place in Southern California. And this is something that, if it continues to grow, means water would eventually trade like a stock, like oil, heck, maybe even like crypto. And that's actually very scary to me because, like I said earlier, water is a human right. I don't believe it's actually a commodity or a natural resource. It's a human right. And when you add something that is very, susceptible to, when you add a financial component to something and make it really, really influenced by money, it's going to get out of whack. I mean, look at what we've seen in every financial instrument ever. They always get moved around by money. And maybe not even with manipulation, they just get moved around. It's a market. So when you add a financial product to water, it's going to create something that big corporations, wealthy individuals have more advantage than you and I. And currently, it's going to be a big challenge, I think, to stop this because they have a lot of influence. So if you want to expose what the Biden administration and the Waltons are trying to do by advocating for water markets, go ahead and smash that like button. It allows YouTube to show this video to more people who not only drink water, but are interested in who are interested in knowing what's going on in their communities, whether they are touched and affected by the Colorado River. And even if you're not, even if you live super far away, if a water market's being able to put in along this huge river in America, then it's going to be easily replicable across other sources of water in America. So this is something that's really important, and we need to be able to watch for this in ballots, for every time there's an election, or if we see nonprofits start advocating for water markets, understanding what their real influences may be. So go ahead, smash that like button, and let's get started. All right, let's take a look at this Wall Street Journal article, which illuminates everything that I'm talking about. The Colorado River is in crisis. The Walton family is pushing a solution. Walmart heirs have spent heavily to promote their view that water markets are the best way to deal with a dwindling supply. The first ever official shortage on the Colorado River has intensified the debate over how to provide water for 40 million people across the Southwest and irrigate fields of thirsty crops like wheat, cotton, and alfalfa. Few voices outside government are more influential than that of the Walton family, billionaire heirs to Walmart Incorporated fortune, who have long advocated water markets as a key part to solving the region's woes. But some environmental groups say the Waltons drown out other non-market approaches. No pun intended. A Wall Street Journal analysis shows that a charitable foundation controlled by the Waltons, the Walton Family Foundation, has given about $200 million over the last decade to a variety of advocacy groups, universities, and media outlets involved in the river. No other donor comes close. 2 federal officials, once affiliated with the foundation, have been named to key Biden administration posts overseeing the river. Putting a monetary value on water has raised concerns among those who benefit from guaranteed access to the water and those who believe markets benefit investors while hurting farmers and the poor. Water markets in Australia have been blamed for helping dry up waterways due to overuse by a handful of wealthy farmers and investors. Anytime that the water starts becoming more valuable than the land, you end up with the possibility of outside speculators, said Andrew Mueller, a general manager of the Colorado River District, a public planning and policy agency that oversees water use in western Colorado. Mr. Mueller said his state has been seeing continued interest in agricultural water and lands by outside investment groups. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second. This is what I was talking about. Once you introduce a financial product, a financial instrument component to something that is now, as it says here, is given to everybody, or people have guaranteed access to it, that guaranteed access for people who are farmers, small business people, a family trying to make it, they currently have guaranteed access, and that financial instrument will come in and drive a wedge between them and their access. And if they don't have the money to pay for that access, then they're going to lose that farm. They're going to lose that business. And on a broader scale, if that access becomes so pricey, so premium, only those who can afford can have that access. And what this means is, like, say, large food companies, large farming or large ag, large industrial, ag being agricultural companies. They're the ones who have the money to win. And so, like Walmart, how they grew and put out all the small businesses as they grew on their way up, all the small farms will go out of business. And then the big farms, the big landowners will be able to come in, buy that land. They just grow and get bigger, thus increasing their war chest and their ability to pay for said access. And the power consolidates. The economic ability to access this consolidates. And so this is my concern. Let's continue. All right, the Walton Foundation has for years held that water markets are among the best ways to distribute and conserve the water that flows along the 1,450-mile river. A number of environmental groups that take Walton money are prominent water market boosters. Now, let's pause for a second. This picture here, they're the intake towers at the Hoover Dam. So these towers, they actually pull water in down here, and that's what goes through the turbines and turns the turbines to generate electricity. Now we're going to look at a chart later that shows that these water levels are at the lowest they've ever been. Now this is a real crisis, and the Waltons are generating a solution, which is great. However, it really seems like it's skewed in their favor. But let's continue. The Nature Conservancy, a public charity focused on conservation that has received funding from the Waltons, said in a 2016 report that such markets can secure a regular flow of water back to depleted ecosystems and sell the rest back to irrigators or cities. An added benefit, it said, is a material return for investors. We need every tool in the toolbox, including guided water markets to increase water security and protect the things we all care about, a Nature Conservancy spokeswoman said. In the past decade, the foundation has accounted for a large chunk of institutional funding for Colorado River activism at major environmental charities such as the National Audubon Society, the Environmental Defense Fund, and American Rivers, according to the foundation's database and the charities. We'll pause here. Now, this is what I was saying about we need to understand when nonprofits, advocacy groups are saying, hey, we should have water markets, we need to understand where that money that funds them comes from. For them to have their own opinion about it, fine, that's great. But when a variety of advocacy groups start saying all the same thing, and you're able to see that the money's all coming from a singular source, they're not 10 different opinions, they're one. And so that's the thing, is we have to be able to become educated, more sophisticated in these things to understand what's really going on. Let's continue. The Waltons also The Waltons have also given money to foundations run by the University of Colorado and University of Arizona, among other universities. This year, it helped fund a reporting team to cover water issues at the Associated Press. The AP said it has worked with other nonprofits besides the Walton Family Foundation and retains editorial control in all of the cases. Okay, nice. A University of Colorado spokeswoman said donations don't influence the outcome of its research. A University of Arizona spokeswoman said that while it has received funding from other groups for its Colorado River program in the last 4 years, the largest source was the Walton Foundation. The money directed by the Walton Foundation has often steered toward advocacy for markets where water is bought and sold like a commodity. Backers say markets can more efficiently value and allocate water, especially as climate change threatens to reduce the supply. In the West, they say long-standing policies that encourage farmers to use up all their water or give it up, known as use it or lose it, have led to widespread waste. The river is now facing one of its biggest crises. The Bureau of Reclamation in August declared the first ever shortage of water on the Colorado River, triggering cutbacks in several states. The Bureau made the declaration after forecasting that Nevada's Lake Mead, which stores water from the river, could remain below 1,075 feet above sea level through early next year. Now that's really bad. That was those two towers that we looked at in the picture. If you scroll up here, if this water level gets too low, the water won't be able to flow into the pipes that run into the turbines in the dam that create the electricity, which means no electricity is going to be generated from the Hoover Dam if the water is too low. Which means all the cities, all the millions of people that rely on electricity from the Hoover Dam will be without power. And that means Los Angeles, a lot of Southern California, parts of Arizona, and parts of Nevada. So it's scary. It's tough. And, like the climate change thing is happening irrespective of the water markets, but it's more about when that control is implemented, when that financial instrument is added, who decides how you get water if you don't have the money? And in this case, it would seem like you don't. So let's continue. So as I was saying, these large cylinders, these large towers take in the water, but if the lake level is too low, it won't take in that water. And here we see that same, this is Lake Mead from that picture, and over this year, the lake level has fallen to such a low level, and that's really problematic. So let's continue. Like much of the West, and across the connected basins, the Colorado River is facing unprecedented and accelerating challenges. Tanya Trujillo, the Interior Department's Assistant Secretary of Water and Science, said in a statement when the declaration was made. Walton officials say they are focused on helping farmers conserve water while continuing to grow crops. Mariah McDonald, director of the Foundation's environmental program, said in an interview, "It has begun pivoting away from a focus on markets toward keeping water in rivers and improving the health of watersheds. The Foundation is also focused on such issues as forest restoration and sustainable fisheries." Potentially magnifying the Walton's family influence, a pair of officials once affiliated with its foundation have been named to positions within the Biden administration that hold considerable sway over the river. Ms. Trujillo, who was sworn in to her current position in June, was project director for the Walton-funded Colorado River Sustainability Campaign, which helps coordinate a range of efforts related to the river among conservation groups. Her current position oversees the Bureau of Reclamation, the largest wholesaler of water in the U.S. So let's pause there for a second. Ms. Trujillo, who is this person here, she was at a Walton-funded advocacy group, and now she's in the Biden administration in the Bureau of Reclamation, which is directly involved with the resale of water. So, rather than having the government do it, putting a kind of a commercial secondary market on top of what is, again, as I said, is a human right, not just a natural resource, it does seem like a conflict of interest. Do we think this is right? And now there's one other person in the Biden administration that this article brings up. Let's continue. And of course, Ms. Trujillo in the Interior Department declined to comment. Michael Connor worked for a time as an environmental program fellow for the Walton Foundation after serving as deputy secretary of the Interior Department in the Obama administration. He has been nominated to be the Defense Department's Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, a position that oversees the civil works programs of Army Corps of Engineers, including some of its work on U.S. water resources. The White House declined to comment, as well as Mr. Connor. So again, we're seeing a second person. So we got one person in charge of Bureau of Land Reclamation, which says is in charge of the largest wholesaler of water in the U.S., and then another person overseeing the kind of the civil engineering side, the infrastructure side of the water. So now we have pricing power control and infrastructure control. It's like, hey, let's, rather than build a dam here, let's build it over here. Let's direct the waterway this way, not that way, to serve whatever the interest may be. And look, not to say it's all bad, but it's just, it puts too many people with too many potential preconceived influences into positions of such great power that impact all of us, that it's going to get, the fear is that this will be steered in the wrong direction, the unfair direction. While at the Walton Foundation, Mr. Connor supported the expansion of so-called water banks, which he described as a market-based approach to compensate water users for temporarily reducing water diversion to avoid regional shortages. The waves of Walton money flowing into environmental groups and researchers have sparked concerns that the family has gained an outsized influence on policy discussions surrounding the Colorado River Basin, and especially discussions about water markets. Within the broad spectrum of environmental voices, the voices being heard are the ones that agree with market-based solutions. A 2018 University of Oxford dissertation on the Walton Foundation's grants found. Oxford water resource researcher Dustin Garrick, who oversaw the study, says he has accepted 2 grants from the Walton Foundation for water projects. Okay. The Walton Foundation's deep pockets have helped forge cooperation around the Colorado River, but have also sharpened the divide between those at the table and those left behind, Mr. Garrick said. About a decade ago, the Waltons began enlisting environmental charities it supports to advocate its causes. In states in Washington, D.C., they have pressed for policies that encourage water marketing and other projects that improve water efficiency in the Colorado River Basin, according to a 2017 Foundation document reviewed by the Journal. Walton Foundation officials regularly meet with the charities and assign them detailed tasks tied to their grants, according to Foundation documents reviewed by the Journal. So they're saying if you want the money, you have to do these exact things. Now, that makes sense. I mean, look, if you're really wealthy and you want to donate, you want to advance your vision. And if you're a advocacy group, a nonprofit, when you accept donor money, typically you have to do the things that they're asking you to. But it's just the nature of it that we're discussing here that it all seems a little fishy. Ms. Trujillo was a lead figure in the Foundation's efforts related to the lower Colorado Basin, which includes Arizona, California, and Nevada, according to people familiar with the matter and documents reviewed by the Journal. A March 2017 document details Walton Foundation goals, including the achievement of a growing water market in Arizona. A former recipient of Walton funds says his cash was halted after he went off script. For about 4 years, a Walton-funded Denver charity awarded $60,000 a year to Save the Colorado, a small Boulder, Colorado group focused on restoring water to the river. Gary Wachner, founder of the group and now a sharp critic of the Waltons' influence, says his funds were cut off once he began agitating against policies supported by other recipients of the family's funds, such as new dam projects. I was told you're out of alignment with the Walton Foundation, he said. A Walton Foundation spokesman said Mr. Wachner tends to be both litigious and combative, which is not in the spirit of collaboration that we're trying to bring to this work. And then the article ends with a dead fish. Wow, what have we learned? The Biden administration, the Walton family and their charitable foundations, they may have a solution. They're trying to do something to save the communities that rely on the Colorado River Basin for their business, for their livelihood. But what they're really advocating for is a water market. and once introduced will not go away. In fact, I predict that once introduced would only expand to every source of water in the US. And this is something that's going to make what used to be a human right become only about what money can buy. And this is going to disproportionately affect families, businesses, people, communities who are already struggling. And it's really going to make things, I think, more unfair. So go ahead, smash that like button. Help YouTube get this video out to more people. Consider subscribing and go ahead and drop a comment. Do you think it's fair that water be traded like a stock? All right, let me know in the comments and I'll catch you next time.